Welcome to another Bojin vlog. How y'all doing? So, today I would like to speak on a topic that I occasionally speak on in this entry. And that is masculinity and femininity. Or rather, I've talked about masculinity and femininity in terms of sexuality a lot. I have a couple entries that are about the sexual component, or rather the attraction between male and female. And in this entry, I have had a recent realization. I say realization, it's more just understanding, I suppose, with regards to masculine and feminine as a whole. And coincidentally, I actually learned of a new term recently, and that term is softboy, right? A weird-ass term, but nonetheless, I learned this term recently. Like, there's this new term called softboy that basically refers to the kind of men that are emerging in today's world, right? Where at one point, men were kind of seen and expected to behave in a way that was very traditionally masculine. You know, that's the kind of way that we, articulate it. But that is obviously a lot of kind of human history. It's like men were kind of expected to behave in a certain way, that kind of like lent itself to like things like violence and competition and things of that nature, but like then at some point in history came the so-called metrosexual male, who was a male. This kind of male was prevalent, I suppose, in the kind of late 90s to like early 2000s, that kind of like had certain kind of characteristics about them that were more flamboyant, you would have like these men that were like kind of like dressed in like fancy clothes, and like they wore makeup, they waxed their hair and made it like a work of art kind of thing. So there was a phase of that within masculinity, and like now there's this new term called softboy, right, which is derived from the term fuckboy, which apparently means like a male that is pretty much like single-minded when it comes to like the procurement, well, not procurement, but like the kind of yeah, I guess you could say procurement of like sexual experience. So like like the sexual conquest, the guy who's like just basically like out to fuck anything that moves, he's always got a fucking agenda. He's a fuckboy, right? So like softboy, the term derives from this term, right? And softboy is because it's such a new term, and because the internet exists, there's a lot of kind of varying definitions on it. But I think that the essence of the term that I kind of picked up on was that like it's this new breed of man that's sensitive, but also somewhat masculine, right? So like he's the kind of guy that is sensitive but also confident, right? So I guess I would fall under this category, if I were to like be so like brazen as to like, to kind of make such a judgment upon myself. But like, I made like an entry or a few entries that kind of went along the lines of how to be sensitive and to own that and to be confident about that. But like, essentially, yeah, this interesting term cropped up, and like it kind of sparked a bit of a thing within me, like, oh, that's interesting, this is a new term. But of course, like, the title of this entry is Soft Boys and Boss Females, right? And the reason for that is because like the term soft boy itself is kind of funny, because it's like it has the word boy in it, which is like kind of somewhat derogatory to men, because it implies that they're immature and weak. And so like I thought that like I would kind of come up with an equivalent term. Like I don't know, like there's probably a proper way of saying this, or like describing these kinds of women, like that are kind of like the counterpart of the soft boy. But I kind of coined my own kind of term, which is boss female, because women don't like women have a thing about being seen as objects, which is what female kind of has a bit of a connotation in. So soft boys and boss females. Why did I entitle this entry as such? And what the hell am I going to talk about in this entry? Well, so, we're all obsessed with sex, like, and not just the physical act of sex, but also like, gender and like how gender defines us, how we're expected to behave, and like the differences between genders and gender roles and gender expectations. And then you have all of the various gray areas involved, like, homosexuality. Then you have like transgender, or individuals that choose to undergo like a transgender transformation, I suppose you could say. And there's all kinds of, like in-betweens, between these poles of male and female, right? And, well, yeah, and the fact that such a term as softboy turned up is really indicative of just the kind of change that is undergoing in terms of how we perceive ourselves, with gender being such an important and integral kind of like aspect of our identity, right? And the scope of this entry, or rather like the purpose of this entry, is, again, it's one of my entries where I just kind of talk about an idea that has formed in my mind, like, in recent history. But like, in terms of, hopefully you can get something in terms of like perhaps a new perspective. Again, that's mostly what my videos aim for, is like to kind of impart, a new perspective or something of that nature, through just, like, I wouldn't say that what I'm about to say has any direct application, but like it's interesting to think about nonetheless. And that is that, well, there is a lot of, in recent history, there's been this thing called feminism, right? And that has really changed, in particular, like the feminine experience in today's world, right? So in today's world, a lot of women actually have a lot of power in society. Like, I would argue that, like, in today's society, women have the most power they've ever had. They are the most free from like the kind of tyrannical reign of the patriarchy than they ever have had in like kind of human history, right? And that came about through this movement of feminism, right? And like, I have, done my own kind of treatise, I suppose, in these entries, like on feminism and what I think is good about it, what I think is bad about it. But like, ultimately it has led to, today's world where like women have freedom in terms of like the way they live their lives, the way that they're perceived, and like, obviously there's lingering sentiments of like, men ain't shit, and like men rob opportunities of women, and we don't need men and all this stuff. But like, I would argue, that like women have a lot of freedom in today's world. You can, like, as a woman, you can do whatever you want in today's world, within reason. Obviously, like, like you can make some insane argument and it might prove true, but like in general, like, you as a woman, you have an idea of the kind of career you want, you can go for it. You have an idea in terms of like the kind of lifestyle you want to lead, or like the kind of man you want in your life, because like maybe that's one thing that like women generally have not had a lot of freedom in history, and I'll go into that in a second. But like, and much less like who they want as a husband. Obviously, like, there are tactics, right? But like, traditionally women have never been able to choose who they can date. It's just kind of like this man picked me, and like I have to become subservient to him for the rest of my life, right? But it's not like that anymore. Women have a lot of freedom and power in society, and it's great. And this is interesting, actually. This is a thought I had, but like, there was also a movement that kind of corresponds to this in terms of the masculine, right? But it's kind of a bit interesting and controversial, I suppose, which is ultimately gay rights, right? I want to talk about gay rights for a second, because like gay rights had the equivalent effect on masculinity as something like feminism, you know, like women kind of rising up and being like, no, I want freedom in my life, you know, I want to say what I do. I don't just want to like be one man's possession. You know, I have my own needs, I have my own desires, I have my own ambitions. I want my own freedom. I want to live the way life I want to live it, right? I want to have value, I want to have significance, I want to have my own opinions, you know. And that was the kind of sentiment behind feminism, you know, the movement. But like for men, a similar thing happened with like gay rights and like the whole kind of gay pride movement, right? So gay men actually have done more for us as men than we could probably ever think. And that is because men have been traditionally viewed as these almost one-dimensional kind of like, yeah, you know, like he's either a soldier or he's a fighter or he's like a manual laborer, you know, or a farmer or something of that nature, you know, like, and like along came gay pride, or like this movement of gay men who wanted a right to be the way that they truly were, right? So men for a long time have been, whether or not they consciously are aware of it, they have been for the longest time enslaved by this idea of what it means to be a real man. To be a real man, you got to go off and fight a war. You know, to be a real man, if someone disrespects you in front of your spouse or in front of your family, then you need to like punch the guy in the face. You know, to be a real man, you can't be into girly things. You know, what are you, some kind of, and forgive me for this, but puff? You know, I don't know how derogatory that term is, but you know, I just wanted to be in character for that, but like as an illustration. But you know, like, what are you, some kind of weirdo? You know, like you like girl, you like fashion and flowers and music. Like, what are you? You know, and for the longest time, men have not been able to express that side of themselves. But along came, you know, gay pride. You know, all of these homosexual men who came and were like, no, like we, you know. It sounds silly, you know, like, because like the stereotypical perception of a gay man is like, you know, oh yeah, babe, you know, hey bitch, you know, but it's like, but like honestly, gay men have done so much because they fought in their own way to free men from the expectation to be like violent and aggressive and emotionless. And now men can be sensitive. They can, you know, they can be like, hey, like, I'm afraid too, you know, like, hey, I like beauty too, you know, like, I'm not just this animal that fights and like, you know, and competes and gets things done, you know, I have my own feelings too, you know. And so like, while women were fighting for their right to freedom, men were fighting for their right to be sensitive and to be sensitive ultimately, you know, which kind of coincides nicely with like, you know, the message that I have on this entry. But like, the reason I'm talking about this is because, you know, well, it's obvious that we're all like kind of in this phase of life where like we're all kind of slightly confused, you know. I myself am always confused, like, you know, whether or not like I should be a man, what being a man means, whether or not that's actually important, you know. And learning all about like, you know, like the difference between like men and women, penis and vagina, but also like masculine and feminine energy, divine masculine, divine feminine, you know, all of these ideas. And I mentioned I read recently, you know, The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, and like I found that book quite interesting. There are some points that like I don't fully endorse, you know, but I, you know, that's natural, I suppose, you know, like any kind of like thing like that, you know, you have things that you agree with and you have things that you not necessarily disagree with, but like you think it's like, and you know, to, you know, in the defense of that book, you know, like in defense of that book, like it's written for a particular audience. So like, you know, fair enough, like it's written for like, you know, the man who's like more logical and like traditionally masculine kind of thing. But also, I guess, for the man who isn't like that, but like at least, but has like a, you know, maybe he's less self-aware or something. But like, in any case, we have bodies that are masculine and feminine. You know, I have a penis. If you're a woman, you have a vagina. And that has an effect on your life. You know, it affects what you will engage in terms of like activities and like certain endeavors. You know, as a man, you're kind of expected. Like even if you're not expected to, like you'll be kind of like drawn into things that are more kind of like that are more operational, more mechanical, you know, like whether that be as traditionally mechanical as being an engineer or being like a software engineer, or even being an artist in the sense of like, you know, to be a musician you have to like be really good at an instrument, so you need to practice your craft, right? So like as a man you will naturally be drawn, even if it's not conscious, even if you're like, I'm not really sporty, or like I'm not really like, I don't really have like a mechanical mind, but you will still be drawn to things that involve like some kind of mechanical and operational focus, right? You know, obviously you're attracted to women if you're heterosexual, but then like obviously there's also homosexuals and all that other stuff. But like in general, like you will be more interested in like, you know, like crusades basically as a man. You know, like you'll have like you will have a purpose in life, or like you will move to the point where like you're like, oh, like I want to do this. You know, this is something I've always wanted to do, and like I want to do it, right? You know, that's kind of the hero's journey. You know, I suppose, of like a man like trying to like make his way in the world, right? And as a woman, you know, like, you know, obviously like. You might be sporty, you know, you might have a mechanical mind or a scientific mind, but like nevertheless you're typically drawn, or like I don't want to say ushered, but like, you know, like you'll find yourself being in roles of like mediation between people. You'll usually find your way into like roles, either like as a mediator where you're kind of like involved with other people and like kind of administrating like things between people. Or you'll be kind of like the front or the face of something. So like your appearance, whereas like for a man it's more his skill, you know, his capability. As a woman, like you will default to like things that are relevant to your appearance, you know, your presentation and things of that nature, your ability to kind of like facilitate like social dynamics, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, and that then plays into like social, like sexual expectations, you know, of people, of genders. You know, like if you're male, people expect you to be a certain way. You know, they expect you to be, like strong in the sense of like you need like, you know, this is social expectation, right? So like I'll go into dating expectations in a second, or romantic expectations, but like this is just social stuff. Like as a man, like people expect you to be kind of like moving forwards in something, like, you know, to be doing something, and like to be like to be focused on some kind of career, you know, whereas as a woman, like you're expected to be more kind of like familial, you know, like and like involved in things like beauty and like you know, or like some kind of healing thing, you know, like maybe being a nurse or being like a masseuse or something, you know, just as examples, or a hairdresser, you know, or some kind of fashion, someone involved in the fashion industry, you know, or makeup, or like cosmetics, or like perfume, you know. And then like obviously, like I mentioned, like it's romantic expectations where like, you know, like as a man, and this is really where most of our anxieties lie. I at least in my experience, right? You know, like when it comes to masculine and feminine, like it affects me the most when it comes to like sexuality, which is why I did many entries about sexuality and like the whole dating aspect of things. But like, you know, men are expected to be confident, strong, you know, tough, emotionally resilient, but also funny and warm when it's needed, you know. And then women are expected to be beautiful, you know, attractive physically. And yeah, I mean, I guess from a certain perspective, like, it seems more simple, like the criteria that men have for women. But like, yeah, no, it's like, as a woman, you just have to be physically attractive, like, because that kind of encompasses most of what men look for in a woman. Like, whereas like for men, it's more kind of like character traits, which kind of necessitate more description. But like in general, for women being attracted to men, it's more kind of like, how confident is he, really? A lot, you know, that's what it boils down to. Is like, is he confident, you know? And then like from confidence comes all of this other stuff, like he's assertive, you know, he's tough, he's emotionally resilient, you know, he's positive and optimistic, he's funny, you know. But as I said, right, you know, like, we have evolved over the years, you know, like with things such as feminism and the gay rights movement, like, you know, we have evolved to the point where we have become more balanced, I suppose. You know, like, women traditionally have always played a very passive role in society, forcefully, you know, like forcibly rather. You know, they like, it's just like, if you're a woman, you never had much say in anything, you know, and no one took you seriously. Like, you were expected to get married to a man, you know, like, you probably didn't have a choice in that matter. And when you were married to that man, like, you were just expected to be a housewife, and like, you may, like, you know, and it didn't matter if you wanted to do other things, like, you know, no, you had to be there and support your man, and like, you had to listen to what he said, you had to like support him, and like, your whole life is about him, you know, as an example, you know. As a man, like, you know, you're expected to just be like a soldier, or like an athlete, or some kind of manual laborer, you know, or, you know, or like some other thing, you know. You might be like a politician, or you might be someone more kind of higher up in society, but nevertheless you're expected to be someone, as like to be like to fulfill like some kind of masculine role in society. Well, with movements such as feminism and the gay rights movement, you know, like, women, like I said, have gained independence, they've gained power, they've gained value, in the sense of, like, you know, they have their own opinions, they are their own people, you know, they can do whatever they want in society. Or like, it's getting towards that. That's the kind of aim of feminism, is to empower and to enable women, you know, in modern society. For men, you know, like, for the longest time we've been struggling with like, you know, all we were just fighters and like people who like did stuff, you know. But like, with the gay rights movement and like all of the subsequent stuff from there, like, we could own our sensitivity. You know, we like, we weren't just expected like to, like, you know, to react to every single situation with either violence or like toughness, you know. It's like, we could cry, you know, we could express ourselves, we could show weakness, you know, we could we could be sensitive, you know. And so like, nowadays, like, men and women, like, there's more of a grayness to men and women, right? And this can be quite, like, it can be quite worrisome, you know. It can kind of cause a lot of confusion and like, just like, what the fuck? Because obviously, like, in my case, I'm a man, right? And so like, I'm attracted to women, as an example, like, you know, just like from that, like, from the romantic angle. And it's like, but in order to be attractive to women, like, there are certain ideas that I need to respect, or that I think I need to respect. Like, well, I need to be manly, you know. I need to kind of be strong, and I need to be opinionated. I need to be like assertive, you know. Like, I need to make things happen, you know. Like, in a competition, I need to win, like, you know, and things of that nature. And like, I can't really show too much sensitivity, because it shows like that, like, I'm too wishy-washy. You know, women don't really want a man who's overly sensitive, you know. Because like, women ultimately want a man to be like, to have a backbone, you know, to be like, if you test him, he's like, here, this is who I am, you know, like, you know, you gave me a test, like, you know, I do that shit, you know, and it's like, as opposed to like, oh, like, that hurts me, you know, like, that kind of, I don't want to do this, you know, it's like, women don't want that, you know, women need a man that's like, kind of like, okay, let's do this. You know, like, it's like, yeah, you know, hey babe, like, what's your opinion on this? But then, like, when she's in need of him to make a decision or to, like, to take action, he does it, right? And like, he's just generally like, you know, she feels safe with him. It's like when they're in a group of people, like, he takes charge. He's not like a doormat, you know. He's like cool. Everyone perceives him well, you know. That's what she wants in a man. And like, I know this. Similarly, if you're a woman, like, you got to be attractive. You know, it's like, men, I wish I could skew it any other way, but it's just like, you know this, I know this, we all know this, like, women, you got to be attractive, you know, like, I had a saying that I came up with, which is like, let me see if I remember it. Like, it's something along the lines of, oh shit. Like, women don't care for men who are weak, and men don't have the time of day for women that are ugly. I mean, that's like pretty much like kind of like, you know, like brutal truth right there, you know. But like, that's how it is, you know. And yeah, and like, you know, as a man or a woman, you feel this, you know, particularly if you don't necessarily have those things in a traditional capacity, you know. But then at the same time, you also have like this thing of like, okay, well, for me, like, I know that I'm sensitive. I've always been sensitive. Like, I've tried to not be sensitive, but it's never worked because fundamentally I am sensitive. You know, like, I like to be. I like to be with my feelings. You know, I like what my feelings make me experience. You know, like, I wouldn't be able to like just do something where you have to be like psychopathic and just like fucking like. You know, like, I don't like you know, like meaningless power struggles and conflicts. You know, like, to me, it's just distasteful. You know, like, I just don't find it very appealing. More than that, I find it repulsive and scary. Really, you know, it just kind of like rubs me the wrong way. And so, like, my journey, by and large, has been trying to own that, right? And an interesting thing that occurred with me kind of like being on this journey and having this latest realization is that, like, yes, inherently as a man, if you are sensitive and you kind of display that to the world, you are sensitive, and like, that is perhaps not something that is traditionally lauded by women or by society. It's like, there are some men who are just athletic and like they're like badasses, and it's like, you're kind of not like that, you know, like, at least on the surface, right? And so, like, you know, this is the most worrying thing, you know, as a man, is like, you know, like, well, I guess I'm just sensitive, you know, I'm just kind of destined and doomed to be sensitive, you know, like, I wish I was strong, I wish I were big, I wish I was an athlete, I wish I was a badass, but I'm not really like that, you know. And similarly, as a woman, you know, like, it's like, well, I guess I'm just not attractive, or like, a lot of women. This is the thing where it's not just about not being attractive, but like, a lot of women have a more masculine essence, you know. Like, a lot of women, like, they're not girly girls, you know, and like, girly girls are the types that are plastered all over, like, on the internet, you know, like. The pretty girly girl is like, you know, the kind of like standard of beauty, I suppose. It's like, you know, the girl who's like really feminine, and like, she's really into fashion, and she's got nice hair, and she's got a symmetrical face, you know. Some women just, it's like, for them, it's like, well, they might, whether or not they're attractive or not, you know, they're just like, well, I'm interested, you know, I'm a woman and I like sports and I like business and I like, you know, I'm the one who traditionally in the family has gotten things done. You know, Like I like taking care of things, you know, I like doing physical things. Like I'm not really into like fashion that much, you know. I do it obviously because, you know, it's like one of the things that you do as a woman. It's like as a man, like, you know, you're expected to watch sports or something like every once in a while, you know, like, well, maybe that's a bad example in my case. Like I hardly ever watch sports, like real sports, but like, yeah, you know, but it's one of those things, you know, it's like, what can you do? It's like, as a man, you have to be confident. It's like, even if you don't feel confident, like sometimes you just have to fake being confident in front of other people because that's just what you need to do as a man. It's like, as a woman, you need to look good. It's like, oh, well, you know, but like, but I learned something, you know, and that is that like, there is being a man or a woman on the surface, and that's obviously important. You know, that's obviously important. Like a manly man and like a feminine, like attractive girl, like they're always going to do well in society, right? But there is also another aspect of sexual energy that is more to do with the way that you move in life, not so much what you engage in, right? So like, you know, another abstract concept I coined is the axis perception, right? And I think it's kind of apt in this case where like sometimes there's a discrepancy between what you see and what you understand conceptually and what that thing means, right? Because the meaning of that thing can change, right? And like this is the thing with sexual energy or anything or really anything in life. It's like sometimes you need to look at the motivation or the place that thing is coming from versus the actual thing. Right, so like in my journey to become more sensitive, which is what I've discovered myself to be ultimately, you know, obviously like I've discovered a lot of my masculinity actually through my journey, ironically, but like I'm like, well, I'm just going to own the fact that I'm aware of my feelings. It's not even like, oh, I'm sensitive, you know, I like cute things. It's like, well, yes, this obviously manifests from this, but like at the same time, it's just like I am just automatically aware of my feelings. Like I cannot ignore my feelings, and like that's just who I am, right? But the funny thing is that like if you own that, you're being masculine, and like, you know, like, and the masculine journey, like even if it is to be who you are, because that's what men have fought for, is to like, you know, I'm not just this brute, you know, I also have feelings, you know, I have sensitivity. You know, in kind of owning that and being like, you know, well, I may not like it. You know, I don't have to like it or to masquerade with it. Like, you know, oh yeah, I am sensitive. Like, yeah, go sensitivity. It's more just like, I'm sensitive. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to jump off a cliff? Because that's still not going to change the fact that I'm sensitive, right? And when you, as soon as you kind of be like, okay, this is who I am, no more pretending to be something I'm not, and you just live in accordance with that, then that is ultimately masculinity. That is, what else do you want out of a man? It's like he owns who he is and he moves forwards with it, you know? And he is penetrating the world in that way. Before you were trying to like be an alpha male and be a badass, and like you would like you know, forcing yourself to be like assertive, you know, and like doing and other things, and it's like, yeah, you know, like there is a way of penetrating the world in that way. And like in that phase, you may have been thinking that like, oh well, like, you know, yeah, like being sensitive means I'm a little bitch and I'm a little beta male and like no one likes that. But it's like, ironically, if you just own that and you just let it flow, because when you're in a state of authenticity, everything becomes natural to you, and like you no longer have to force it, and like, and for that forcing energy to disempower you, like you're just yourself, right? And that is the best place to penetrate the world from, because you're just like yourself unapologetically, which means wherever you go, your energy is penetrating the environment, and like your energy is like flowing out of you, just like the semen of a man into the world, right? So there's an interesting irony there, and like as a woman, right? As a woman, you have your own agenda. You know, that's what you've been working towards as a woman. It's like you're working towards independence. Like, it's like, well, I live in one society, so I need a job, I need a career, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I can't do anything, right? So that's the whole kind of like, I don't want to label it as such because it's kind of like, I feel it's kind of disrespectful to the individual woman, but like the feminist kind of attitude, which is like, hey, like I have a right to do whatever I want to, I have value, right? And women are doing this. Whoops, sorry. Women are doing this, and but this also causes that, like, women to worry, because it's like, well, does this mean that I'll never find a man, right? Because it means I'm not feminine enough. If I'm too opinionated and too like, like too like ambitious, like, men are going to be frightened away from me, and like they're not going to be attracted to me, and like, well, again, it's one of those things, like, it's just like, well, but you still do it because it's who you are. It's like, it's not like, it doesn't mean, like, it's not as if like you do the traditional woman thing and get married to a man and just shut up for the rest of your life and listen to whatever the fuck he says and tells you to do, that you're automatically not going to have your own opinions and your own ambitions, right? So like, you can't go that way. So it's like, well, I have a right to like my own opinions and like my own status and my own like possessions and whatever the fuck a man has, right? But like, again, funnily enough, right, you can have that, right? And once you have those things and you allow yourself to just be whoever you want to be as a woman, then like you automatically tap into your feminine radiance, right? So like I mentioned, right, men have simple desires. They only look at a girl's appearance. Well, if you watch any of my previous entries, then like that's not, you'll know that like I've said that isn't the whole story, right? It's not just about how a woman looks. That's a big part of it, but it's also like how she carries herself, the kind of energy that she brings, right? I can assure you that like a man who sees a woman, regardless of what she really looks like, or like, obviously, take this with a pinch of salt, but like, really, regardless of what she looks like, or like what she's doing, or or her status, if she's a woman and she's just like, there's just like this elegance about her, like she's just like you can tell that she's happy and she's positive and she's loving, like she's just like like this, she has this radiance about her, like she loves, and that translates practically as love. If as a woman you feel love, aka you're not worried, you're not stressing out, you're not throwing a tantrum. Okay, not throwing a tantrum, but like you're not like going through one of your, like, you're not kind of like freaking out, like, but when you're happy, and you're just like, you're giggling and you're like you're having fun with your friends, and like you're like teasing and flirting with people, that is attractive. That is your feminine radiance. That is femininity, ultimately, right? Again, what else? What more do you want? She does what she needs to do because she's an individual. You can't expect her to be a housewife, and be an object for the rest of life. Fuck that, But like, regardless of all of that, she does what she needs to do. She's independent, but she's also like super like fun to be around, and like you just be around her and you're like, oh my god, she's so cool. Like she's like, I just feel like so happy when I'm with her, because she's joking around and she's smiling and she's got this like this elegant way that she moves, and it's like, and like whatever she wears, whatever makeup she has on, however she does her hair, whatever she talks about, whatever she's involved with in her life, there is just this elegance and love and connectedness that you feel when you're with her, because that's what she's feeling, right? So again, strange, isn't it? That like, we're going through this thing and like, we're like, oh man, like if I'm a sensitive male, like, no woman's gonna find me manly enough to want to sleep with me, whatever it is. Or like, if I'm a woman and like, I'm too like career focused and stuff like that, like, and I don't like kind of like, dress up occasionally and like be like a bit submissive, like it means that men are gonna get frightened away and they're not gonna be attracted to me. It's like, but like, funnily enough, if you just let yourself have that, and you get to the side, you will realize that like as a man, you're penetrating the world in a way that's super authentic, right? And as a woman, you are coming into your own power in the most elegant and radiant and feminine way possible, right? But this is the thing, right? I said that like we are men and women in our bodies, and that has an effect on life, because that's ultimately true. It's a fact. Like your body has an effect on you. It doesn't really matter what you think. Obviously, like what you think and what you believe and what you say is important. The way that you feel, your beliefs, that's important, right? But like your body has an effect on you, right? So like another way of saying this is like, I am sensitive, and that's not traditionally masculine, but because I am a man physiologically, I cannot help but to be sensitive. My sensitivity automatically penetrates the world, Whereas if you're a woman, it's like, you may be ambitious, you may be very opinionated, you may you may dismiss a lot of this hand holding that men think that women need, right? And you can go into that, but like it doesn't change the fact that you are radiant. That like all you really need to do is to smile, and like you have the heart of the man sitting next to you. It's not just men, but it's just like you are still that presence, right? Okay, compare a man to a woman. That man could be Orlando Bloom. I don't know why I plucked his name out of the air, but like he could be some really attractive man, right? But like if you put him together with a woman, okay, fair enough. Like if it was some supermodel male and some average female, you might be like, okay, the male's more attractive, right? But like still, there is something that the woman brings that the man simply cannot. It doesn't matter if he's a supermodel. It doesn't matter if he's the hottest man on earth. There is something about a woman that captivates the hearts of everyone, because she's a woman. She has feminine beauty. Her body is a representation of beauty and love, right? So like her energy automatically like fills, like kind of like takes the energy of the room in to her. She's like an attractive force because she is a woman, But anyway, yeah, like I've heard. Okay, so like this is kind of my own theory, but it's also something that I've heard Teal Swan, the spiritual teacher, talk about. Like in some of her interviews, like she's mentioned that like she predicts that that gender will disappear in our race, like. And like I've talked about this in previous entries, and it's kind of like obviously it's kind of like a very like kind of like seemingly harebrained and a far-fetched idea, but like if you really think about it, that's kind of already in the process of happening. Like I'm not going to say concretely that it's going to happen, but like A, I can see it already happening, and B, would it be so bad? Like it's just like basically like what she's saying is we'll become hermaphrodites of some description. Like we'll be able to like kind of like, obviously this is probably in the distant future if it were to ever happen, like, but like. Like there'll be a point where like everyone's just like we have penis and vagina, and we can make love with anyone, because we have become balanced to such an extent within our own bodies. Our energies have balanced to the degree that our physical bodies manifest genderlessness, because really, if you are on a spiritual path, that before the physical manifestation, there is the pre-manifested. That's how law of attraction works, right? Is that like you focus on something that's pre-manifested that you want, and then with like action and like synchronicities or whatever you want to call it, right? you eventually manifest the thing that you want, right? The same is true with sexuality, right? If our energy, which is really like, you could say it's the pre-manifestation of like sexuality, right? If we become balanced to the extent that, like, you know, men are allowed to be feminine, and females are allowed to be masculine, right? Then it will follow that the physical manifestation will follow suit, you know? So, like, I don't know what the point of this entry is, really. It's just like, I had this idea, and like, it's just, to me, it inspires a feeling of like, of joy in me, because I'm like, it's so cool that we can just be ourselves. If there's even a point of this entry, it's be yourself. You know, recognize, okay, you know, like, have these ideas about what masculine and what feminine are, because they're useful. You know, like, it's like, yeah, some things ring true. It's like, you know, as a man right now, you're attracted to women, and like, you're attracted to certain aspects of a woman, right? And as a woman, you're attracted to men, you know, and like certain aspects that they bring, you know, and it's like, be mindful of that stuff, you know, and kind of occasionally think about it in relation to yourself, you know, just as sometimes it's like just like a thing of reference, you know, just like, oh, that's interesting. And sometimes it's like, I don't know what's wrong with my life, and like, you know, you're trying to solve it by like, you know, I need to become masculine. And like, yeah, we all go through that. You know, it's kind of a bit resistant, but like, it's what all of us have to go through, you know, in life. You know, but at the end of the day, be yourself. Because at the end of that road of being yourself, if you're a man, be sensitive. If you're a woman, have your own individual status and value. At the end of all that, you're still a man, or you're still a woman. So like, your kind of insecurities about not being man enough or not being woman enough, follow your path. You know, just do what you're doing. Be sensitive if you're a man, or be like, you know, ambitious and opinionated as a woman. You know, and then at the other side of that, you will find, you know, as you own yourself as a sensitive male, or you fall in love with your individuality as a woman, right? One is a masculine force of like, this is who I am. Nothing can destroy this about me, because this is who I am. You know, try to take this away from me. You know, that's very masculine, right? And as a woman, it's like, I love the world, so I do this for the world. You know, I have these ideas. You know, I can be funny. You know, I can be inspirational. I can be efficient and effective, right? And the reason I do that is to be as woman as I can be, because then I can buy my own clothes, I can style myself up, I can own my own expression of femininity. And that's going to be much better than like just like wearing some fucking cosmopolitan like suggestion. I don't even know if that's probably like quite like an ignorant thing to say. I've never read Cosmopolitan. I don't even know, like, I know it's like gossipy and shit, but like, you know, or like, you know, like some like fucking YouTuber that I tried to copy and it falls short because it's not an accurate expression of who I am. Own yourself. And like the most potent, you know, expression of your own sexuality, of your own identity will come through. So cool. That's my entry. Quite a positive one, which is good, as always. So, yeah, thank you for watching, guys. And as always, I hope you're having a very great day. I hope this was insightful. And keep going towards your dreams, and keep owning who you are and moving in love and in the direction of love. And also be a badass, right? So cool. Thank you very much for watching this, guys. And I will catch you, as always, in the next entry. Peace out. Whoosh.